Good evening. Welcome to the Horns and Halos channel. I'm Horns, and I'll be reading you a short story called The Eighth Floor. It is originally written by a wayward wanderer. Enjoy. I was staying at a hotel in Chicago, Illinois, during a very busy business trip, and I was going to stay for the whole weekend. It was an older hotel, one that still used the small keys rather than the key cards to enter the rooms. I didn't mind. It seemed nice to get away from the onslaught of technology. When I checked into the hotel, it was packed full. A nasty storm had struck, stranding many tourists and canceled flights. No more rooms were available, and many people were being turned away because of the lack of vacancy. When I approached the front desk to check in, I noticed that all the keys for the rooms on the 8th floor were still on the wall. Not a single key was missing. It seemed odd that an entire floor would be vacant when so many people were all being clamored together to check in and get their own rooms. I could see the clerk was stressed out. He was ready to just give up and go home. So I tried to lighten the mood. "Kind of weird, isn't it?" "What is?" the clerk said. "How everyone on the 8th floor is missing." The clerk gave me an odd look, and his face paled. "What do you know about the 8th floor?" he replied in a serious tone. "What? No, nothing," I answered honestly, a little embarrassed that my attempt to lighten the mood backfired. I had just noticed that all the keys were, still there on the wall behind the desk. The clerk blushed, a little tired, and simply trying not to laugh. "Oh, yes, I see now." He went back to check me in and handed me my keys to my room on the 9th floor. "Enjoy your stay." "I will. Thanks." I awkwardly accepted the key and grabbed my bag, heading for the elevator. Just like the lobby, the elevator was also packed. It was difficult to stand next to so many strangers so close by, let alone enter and exit the small elevator. I struggled to reach and press the button for the 9th floor, but I did manage to see over the crowd of people and reach the button panel. It was then I noticed that the buttons seemed to be missing the 8th floor. "That's funny," I thought out loud. "I wonder why there's no button for the 8th floor." But no one in the elevator reacted. They either didn't care or they were too preoccupied and didn't hear me. Once I finally got to the floor, I checked into my room. I took a moment to relax and unwind on the bed. I had to give a presentation tomorrow and I needed to be alert. I decided I should probably go to bed early and call it a night. Maybe practice my speech a few times to make sure I sounded confident. I took a shower, brushed my teeth, and stood in front of the bathroom mirror as I practiced my sales pitch a few times. A strange groaning sound from the room beneath me began to get my attention. It sounded like there was a man in pain or upset. I ignored it and continued to practice my speech. The groaning from the lower floor continued on and on, getting louder and louder by the minute. Angrily, I stomped on the floor as hard as I could and shouted, "Hey, are you okay down there?" No answer. The groaning stopped. Satisfied that I must have made the man feel embarrassed, I continued to practice my speech. Just as I had finished the first half of my speech, the groaning began again. This time, it was much louder and more angry. If If this was going to go on all night, there was no way I'd be prepared for my presentation tomorrow. I knocked on my neighbor's door and was greeted with a grumpy response from a young lady and her new husband. "Excuse me," I politely tried to engage in conversation. "Do you hear that noise in the room below us?" "No." The woman sounded confused and still kind of grouchy. "We haven't heard anything until you pounded on our door." "Oh, sorry," I apologized, once again, feeling embarrassed. Must be the pipes of something then. I tried to think of a possible alternative explanation, so I didn't seem like I was a crazy person. "Well, I'll call management then, and hope you have a good night." The couple quickly shut the door and locked it. I returned to my room, where the groaning noises continued. I picked up the phone on the small table next to the bed and called the front desk to complain about the noises. When I mentioned that it seemed to be coming from the room beneath me, a room on the 8th floor, the woman who answered the phone suddenly got quiet. "Sir, there is no one checked in that room. Must be someone on the 9th floor." "No," I tried to sound confident. "It's not coming from the walls. It's coming from the floor." "Well," the woman sounded rattled, and I could sense that she was trying to think of an explanation just to get me to hang up. "I'll call in the maintenance crew. It's probably a leaky pipe or a problem with the heating ducts." "Yeah, thanks." I hung up the phone, not believing her for an instant. The groaning was growing louder and angrier by the minute. I put my hands to my ears and tried to block out some of the sound, but it just wasn't enough. I walked back into the bathroom and turned on the shower and the sink full blast, hoping the running water would maybe drown out some noises and help. But it barely helped at all. I sat on the bathroom floor trying to think of a way to get some sleep, but I didn't have any other options. All the rooms were full. I couldn't request a new room or go anywhere else. It was too late in the night. There was no way any other hotel would even have vacancies during the storm. Suddenly, the pipes on the shower began rattling violently. The shaking was so strong that it caused the shower to sputter as it continued to run. The sound was like thunder inside the walls, and the thunder outside the hotel, as well as the pounding rain. It sounded like there was a freight train barreling down the tracks, right in the hallway beside me. I left my room, grabbing my key and my phone, and I made my way to the elevator so that I could lodge a complaint in the lobby. As soon as I stepped inside the elevator, I remembered the 8th floor couldn't be accessed. The number just wasn't an option. And I remembered that all the keys for the 8th floor were still behind the desk in the lobby. How could anyone check into a room on the 8th floor? Unless someone had completely... No one would. Just take up all of those rooms. There was at least 10. Curious, I exited the elevator and made my way for the stairs. I walked down the stairwell from the 9th floor and then suddenly directly to the 7th. That's impossible, I told myself. I walked back up the stairs and double-checked the floor numbers. Sure enough, just like the elevator, there was no number 8. I walked up and down the staircase a few times, trying to figure out what was going on. And then I noticed a small imperfection in the wall next to the doorway that led to the 7th floor. I checked and realized that it was a very thin gap. The gap was between a hidden door and its doorframe. Using my fingertips, I pried the door open, found a small staircase leading back up one flight, up to the otherwise non-existent 8th floor. It was dark and dusty, like no one had used this passageway in years. I used the screen on my phone to light my way as I made it up the staircase. There was another door at the top of the stairs. It wasn't sealed away or hidden. It was easily accessible, and the door was numbered 8. Opening the door, I found myself on the 8th floor, and alone. I could just feel it. There was no one else on this floor with me. It was dark and a long hallway. Not even the exit signs were lit up. I continued to use my phone as I walked down the hallway, checking each door as I passed. They were all locked, that is, except for one door. The unlocked door was for the room directly beneath mine. I knocked once, just to make sure no one was secretly checked into the room, but no one replied. Beginning to gather my courage, I placed my hand on the doorknob and opened the door. Still trying to figure out why the door was unlocked, and found myself standing in a room that mirrored my own perfectly. The lights didn't work. I tried the switch a few times just to make sure, but there was no power, seemingly on this floor. Hello? I called out into the room. Is anyone here? Still no response. I went over to the phone and picked it up, but the line was dead. The amount of dust and cobwebs told me that no one was in this room, and no one had been for quite some time. But I still felt compelled to look around. I opened the door to the bathroom and was taken aback by what I saw. There was a bathtub in the room, unlike mine, which had a full shower. It was just a bathtub full of dark water. The water was on top, with the tub just threatening to spill over at any moment. I stepped closer, still using my phone to light the way, when I noticed a dark figure laying in the tub. It looked like a man, a dead man, or what I could assume. Shining my phone over the tub, I stared down into the still water, as if in a trance, trying to look at the man's dead face. As my senses slowly came back to me, the man's eyes widened, and he looked directly at me. I fell back on the floor, dropping my phone, losing my light. Splashing sounds came from the tub, and I could feel the cold water spilling onto the floor, soaking into my clothes. The sound of a heavy, wet footstep exited the tub. The second footstep was all the motivation I needed to get up and run. I bolted from the room, not caring about my phone or who the man was, and ran down the hall back to the door from whence I had entered. I ran down the stairs all the way into the lobby and didn't stop until I collided with the front desk. I breathlessly tried to tell the clerk what I had seen and that we needed to call the police. Sir, the clerk tried to sound calm and reassuring. What did you see exactly? I told him what I had seen and what I had heard. I showed him the wet spots on my clothes, where the tub's water had splashed me. I didn't care if I got arrested or for trespassing or for causing a disturbance. I had to tell someone what I had seen. The clerk listened intently to my story, not blinking, not looking away. When I finished, he got up and walked over to a large filing cabinet. He opened an unmarked drawer and began thumbing through an extensive collection of files. Finally pulling a file from the drawer he had opened, and he pulled out a very, very old-looking newspaper article. "Is this the man you saw?" he asked as he handed me the article. I looked at the clipping, and I felt my stomach drop. It was him. That was the man. The clerk sat down across from me, smiled, looking around to see if there was anyone else listening to us. "You're not the first to see him." That was not the reaction I wanted. "Read the article. It should help clear things up." I stared blankly at him momentarily, then looked at the article. It told a story of a man who had gone away on a business trip and returned home to discover that his pregnant wife had been cheating on him and that the baby surely wasn't his. Broken-hearted that the man was betrayed, he checked himself into the hotel and never left his room. He was heard crying and wailing in heartbreak for 3 days after he finally stopped. When the maid entered his room to clean, she found his body in the bathtub. He had taken his own life, drowning himself after ingesting what must have been sleeping pills. Is this why you don't let anyone check in on the 8th floor? Because of him? I asked, feeling more at ease, maybe not knowing I was crazy. "No," the clerk admitted. "He is only one of the reasons we don't let people check into the 8th floor." "What do you mean?" The clerk just smiled again. "You see that filing cabinet?" I looked over to it and nodded. "And that unmarked drawer at the bottom?" I nodded again and answered, "What of it?" "The drawer contains every reason we don't let anyone check in on the 8th floor. Ever since this hotel opened in 1873, we've had numerous people die in very unusual ways. Always on the 8th floor." "Strange," I commented, beginning to feel even more uncomfortable again. "What's stranger is that the fact that no 2 deaths were the same, and no 2 deaths ever took place in the same room. Each room on the 8th floor has housed a tragic death, and each room has been reportedly haunted by the dead." That sent a shiver up my spine. "What? How? Are you telling me the 8th floor is just cursed? Anyone who checked into the room is gonna die or be haunted?" The clerk bowed his head. "It's not just the rooms that have seen death. Maintenance workers have even died attempting to do simple repairs. One man was electrocuted trying to fix the lights. Another fell down the elevator shaft to his death. A maid was found dead, hanging by her neck at the end of the hallway." I sat in transfixiation and fear at the story that the clerk had just told me. I didn't want to believe it, but call the police? I saw a body. Everyone does, the clerk explained. Even the police have seen the bodies. We have never been able to explain the situations. I held my head in my hands for what seemed to be hours as I just tried to gather my thoughts. I didn't know what to do. It was late, I could tell. I was exhausted. I didn't want to cause any more disturbances. So I thanked the clerk again. He wished me a good night. I did the same for him. And reluctantly, I returned to my room. I took the elevator and held my breath as the car passed the sealed-off 8th floor. As I approached my room, I saw something wet outside the door. Getting closer, I noticed it was my phone. That was the 8th floor. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you liked it, press the like button, maybe subscribe. I'll see you again very soon. Good night.